Western Canada, big, rugged, wild, and tremendously varied. Our journey takes us from the prairies to the Pacific, from Arctic wilderness to world-class cities. We begin in Manitoba, the center of the country and the continent. A fitting first stop is Winnipeg, gateway to the west. Rivers were the highways of the past, and Winnipeg's history follows in the wake of those early travelers. A meeting place for thousands of years, it evolved into the settlement hub that opened up the west. Today, the city's birthplace is called the Forks, and it's still a popular gathering spot. Across the river is St. Boniface Cathedral, in the heart of Winnipeg's French Quarter. This was the birthplace and final resting place of Louis Riel, leader of the Métis, a people descended from French fur traders and their native wives. He is celebrated as the founding father of Manitoba. Today, Winnipeg is home to the largest Francophone community west of Quebec. Portage in Maine, Canada's most famous street corner, is gateway to the Exchange District. Established at the turn of the century, this was Winnipeg's original center of commerce and finance. Now a National Historic Site, it includes over 30 blocks of architectural marvels. From high finance to high flying, Winnipeg's Kite Festival is one of the many events that fill up the summer season with fun and entertainment. For more family fun, the zoo tells a surprising tale.
I'm sure you've heard of the famous Canadian black bear from Winnipeg. Sure you have. It was a World War I captain who named the cub after his Manitoba hometown and took her with him to England as his regiment's mascot. Well, when he shipped out for France, he donated the cub to the London Zoo. One little boy in particular really grew to love the bear. The boy's father was A.A. Milne, and his son, Christopher Robin, called the bear Winnie the Pooh. When it's too hot for woman or beast, there's nothing better than the beach. And Grand Beach, just an hour outside Winnipeg, was voted one of the top 10 beaches in the world. But when the sun sets, the shores are left to nature, and sun worshippers return to the city.
From this southern Manitoba metropolis, we're about to head north to a famous wilderness outpost. Since roads don't run as far north as Churchill, you could fly, but taking the night train from Winnipeg is the only way to arrive there with a feel for the changing landscape. The leisurely trip takes a day and a half, and for us, filming from an empty boxcar was half the fun of our journey to a naturalist's paradise. In this vast subarctic wilderness, Churchill is not only the end of the line, it's the only town bigger than a trading post. Its location on the shores of Hudson Bay at the mouth of the Churchill River make it a wildlife mecca. Birders flock here every spring for a chance to see nearly 200 species. And in the fall, wildlife watchers from all over the world head out in the safety of tundra buggies to come face to face with a single species, polar bears. These lords of the Arctic gather and play here every year, waiting for the bay to freeze before they begin their annual seal hunt, much to everyone's delight. And in summer, thousands of beluga whales congregate around the Churchill River estuary, making it the most accessible place to come and see them in such numbers. Daily boat tours take visitors out on whale watching expeditions. And what's so amazing is that the whales often seem to be out on people watching expeditions and actually come and play with the boats.
More than 200 years after the beluga whale was first described, we still have more questions than answers about them. For starters, worldwide population estimates range anywhere from 40,000 to over 200,000. Well, of the many different groups, sadly, some are endangered, others threatened, and one of them was completely wiped out.
In Canada's western Hudson Bay, beluga populations are healthy. Every spring, the Churchill River estuary in northern Manitoba is the destination for several thousand migrating belugas. We've come here to literally gaze into the eyes and the lives of these beautiful and gentle creatures. We decided to start our adventure by trying to get a taste of the beluga's winter world. Far out in Hudson Bay, we found ourselves in a glistening sculpture garden looking for an icy harbor of sorts. Getting in the water ourselves was the only way to gain a real feel for the beluga's environment. But even with all our insulating gear, we quickly found out that in this frigid water, a dry suit is a dismal substitute for the beluga's thick blanket of blubber. It's not fully understood how belugas use their sonar to travel under the Arctic ice. But for them, finding the next breathing hole is a matter of life and death. We were just having fun.
What a day for a swim.
Looking forward to a nice hot shower, we headed back to Churchill, unaware of all the surprises the belugas had in store for us. Beluga comes from a Russian word meaning white one, but not all of these whales are white. Baby belugas are born dark in color and gradually lighten over several years. Lacking a dorsal fin earned belugas a scientific name meaning dolphin without a wing. A back fin would only impede travel under ice. They're also called sea canaries. Belugas are famous for the tremendous repertoire of sounds they make. As a matter of fact, of all whales, belugas are probably the most vocal, and they don't even have vocal cords. Today we can eavesdrop on them using an underwater microphone or hydrophone. Just being able to listen to their song was exciting, but we were amazed by what happened next. Like a curious puppy, one beluga came over and started to play with this strange object in her environment. And even though she could have snapped it right off its cable, she was very gentle.
Have you ever wondered how we get these shots? Well, it's not as easy as it looks.
Belugas only spend about 5 to 10% of their time at the surface, and so filming them can be a real challenge. Well, one way to get a glimpse of them underwater is with a boom camera. Essentially, it's just a waterproof security camera on the end of a pole. Now, the picture is transmitted up the cable and into this shaded monitor. Now, it shows me exactly what the camera sees. The trick is maneuvering the pole so you actually get to see something, preferably a whale.
To our constant delight and amazement, the belugas appeared as interested in us as we were in them. But for some reason, they seemed to find us more intriguing when the boat was moving. It was then that they came closer and stayed longer. The opportunity to watch their unusually flexible bodies move effortlessly through the water was fascinating, and we felt privileged by the gift of their trust. This beluga's scars probably indicate a narrow escape from the huge claws of a polar bear. Why the belugas came and went usually remained a mystery, but this time we found the reason: a schooling banquet of capelin, food. A feeding frenzy was in progress. Every day we spent with the belugas, we became more and more smitten by their playful, curious natures. As this one demonstrates, belugas have tiny teeth, but it's not known exactly how they use them because they suck in their food and swallow it whole.
For millennia, whales have played an important role in the survival of the Inuit. To travel the Arctic seas, these northern people fashioned the original oilskin kayaks. We brought with us a new version of their ancient design, a folding klepper kayak. Putting it together was a snap. In record time, we were ready for a new experience with the whales. As we paddled, we imagined the early Inuit hunters heading out in their kayaks. For them, belugas represented food for their community. We were thrilled when one whale's powerful tail rocked our boat. Unlike those first whalers, we had the luxury of using the kayak not to feed our families, but simply to nourish our spirits. But it was always disappointing when the whales disappeared, and we couldn't wait for them to return.
Look at, here he comes, here he comes. Oh, they're all underneath us. There's one. Oh, he's looking at us, look at him. Ah, look, here comes those bubbles.
In the process of expelling air to dive, the beluga's breath creates a shimmering dance of kinetic artistry.
But they also caused a problem, constantly sticking to our camera lens. In our efforts to film the belugas, we turned every idea upside down and inside out.
We went to great lengths and depths to try to enter their world,
And did some pretty curious things to arouse their curiosity. The most outlandish was using Denise as bait to troll for whales,
Oh, there's another one,
which was surprisingly successful. But one of our most thrilling moments took place when we were sitting there doing nothing at all.
Come on. There he is. Hi. You can have it. You can have it. You can have it. Come on. Have a bite. Daddy, look. Did you get it? Oh. Too wild.
One day, while out looking for whales, what we thought was a beluga turned out to be a polar bear enjoying a cool swim. Out of deep respect and good sense, we weren't nearly as close to the bear as the camera makes it appear. Besides that, being in a rubber boat, it only seemed wise to keep our distance from a powerful animal with claws. We obeyed his not-so-subtle warnings to stay back, and he never panicked. Within a few minutes, we left this magnificent animal alone in his Arctic domain. Near the end of this adventure, we had one of the biggest thrills of our life.
Hi there.
These youngsters seemed particularly playful and eager, staying very close to the boat, even nudging the pontoons. So at one point, I just couldn't resist. I reached out my hand.
I touched him.
What was so remarkable is that they didn't fear us. They actually came back again and again.
Hi there. So neat, they're looking right at you. You can just look right in their eyes.
It was utterly magical to reach out to a wild creature and in some way feel it reach out to you. This was the beluga's greatest gift of all. In return, our fondest wish would be to give them freedom from industrial pollution, peace from the noise of northern development, and escape from overhunting. When we came to Churchill, we felt prepared for the challenge of filming belugas. What we didn't anticipate was developing an emotional bond with these luminescent spirits of the deep.
Nature does not recognize the borders between nations. They concern only humans. The International Peace Garden straddles the invisible boundary between Manitoba and North Dakota. It's a unique tribute to the enduring friendship and peace between the people of Canada and the United States. But relations weren't this amiable in 1874, when the Northwest Mounted Police left Manitoba on its inaugural trek west to assert Canadian sovereignty and make it clear to American settlers that this land belonged to Canada. They established their first post at Fort Macleod in what later became the province of Alberta. At that time, every Mountie was perfectly at home on horseback, and it wasn't long before their British cavalry drills were set to music. In 1920, the force became the RCMP, and the modern musical ride was born. complicated patterns are a highlight, but the real crowd pleaser is the charge. Canadian pride, tradition, and history are embodied in the musical ride, and the RCMP stand as an internationally recognized symbol of the country.
Mountie history is intimately tied to Saskatchewan. Here in this prairie province, we'll tour its largest city, take a therapeutic swim in a salty lake, explore the grasslands, and discover its rich Aboriginal heritage. Our first stop is Regina, rising like a mirage from the Great Plains. Back in 1927, the Hotel Saskatchewan stood alone on the prairie skyline. It was the province's first grand railway hotel, and at the time it was hailed as evidence that progress and permanence had come to the West. Its historic elegance is quite literally fit for a queen. The Palatial Royal Suite has hosted Her Majesty, princes, and princesses, and even commoners are treated royally. Regina, Latin for queen, is Saskatchewan's capital, a modern center of culture, business, and activity in the middle of the prairies. The Queen City boasts one of the continent's largest urban parks, Wascana Center. The lake is especially unique because it was actually dug out by hand during the Depression.
The impressive legislature building sits on the park grounds, today the Center for Canada Day celebrations. July 1st marks the anniversary of when the British North American provinces were joined together as the country of Canada. And on this national holiday, with glowing hearts, Canadians celebrate their home and native land. The ever-changing skyscape is a constant companion, no matter where you travel in Saskatchewan, inspiring the province to adopt the slogan, Land of Living Skies. Or, as the locals like to say, land where you can watch your dog run away for 3 days.
Big sky, big landscapes, and big water. Over 100,000 lakes. Little Manitou is one with unique appeal. The foam is natural and more fun to play in than a bubble bath. A steady wind has whipped up this frothy mass of meringue. Unlike freshwater suds, these were created from salt water, making the foam so firm it takes on a life of its own. But the real reason for coming here is to have a dip in this legendary lake. Long before tourists, early Aboriginals called it Lake of Healing Waters. It was pretty chilly, but similar to the Dead Sea, the mineral-rich waters nourish the skin and help relieve joint and muscle pain. It's also 3 times saltier than the ocean, making it impossible to sink.
Oh, it's very salty.
So why am I reading the paper? Just to prove it's possible. And the headlines are, Saskatoon shines.
Just northwest of here is Saskatchewan's largest and most vibrant city. One of Saskatoon's most prominent landmarks is the Bessborough, another of the grand railway hotels that are part of Canada's identity. Much of the city's appeal comes from the river running through it and the lovely parkland preserved on either side. On the east bank is the University of Saskatchewan, whose Gothic-style buildings make it one of Canada's most beautiful campuses. The South Saskatchewan River is a great place for people to play, and it's also a popular site for the city's favorite visitors. Every spring, residents have a contest to see who can guess when the first white pelican will return to their fishing spot at the weir. Once on the endangered species list, Saskatoon's harbingers of spring are now a beautiful sight on the river, every year from April to October. Part of the adult spring breeding attire includes a unique horn on their bill that falls off after the nesting season. The fishing here isn't guaranteed, but as their prey tumble over the dam, it's easier for the pelicans to scoop up the confused fish in their enormous throat pouch. Just drain and serve.
Once they've caught their limit, it's a 60-mile flight from Saskatoon back to the nearest nesting colony at Redberry Lake. Recognized as an important bird sanctuary since 1915, the lake was recently designated a World Biosphere Reserve through the grassroots efforts of Peter Kingsmill, who will take visitors on a boat tour near the pelicans' breeding site. About 900 pairs nest on this isolated island. Each couple only raises a single chick, and when young, the parent's body is all that protects it from the extremes of heat and cold. At mealtime, older chicks bury their head down the parent's bill to reach the up-and-coming, partially digested fish. Parents will abandon their chicks if disturbed. Today, it's illegal to enter a nesting colony. Off-duty adults also feed on Redberry Lake. Peter explained that a pelican finds a good fishing spot by finding other pelicans that are already fishing. When going after a school of fish, they often work together. Many thrusting bills are more likely to come up with a fish than a single one. For tens of thousands of years, white pelicans have been returning to the same lakes on the Great Plains. We are now the stewards of their home, and their future is our future.
Nearby, nomadic tribes who roam the northern plains gathered at this sacred place for more than 6,000 years. Today, Wanuskewin is a National Historic Site outside Saskatoon. Visitors can discover the stories of a people who came here to gather food and hunt bison. Before European settlers hunted the great herds to the brink of extinction, buffalo were central to the lives and culture of the Plains people. They meant the difference between life and death. To the natives, needlessly destroying the bison was a great offense. The animals were regarded as a gift of the Great Spirit, only hunted for survival. One very effective hunting technique was to stampede the buffalo over a cliff. At Wanuskewin's ancient buffalo jump, you can almost hear the echoes of the great hunts. A unique way of life ended with the last of the mighty herds. Wanuskewin portrays not only the distant past, but also the spirit and vitality of Aboriginal culture today, expressed so beautifully through their traditional way of dance. Today, this legacy also continues at ceremonial powwows, like in Kamloops, British Columbia. These annual events are a combination social gathering, dance competition, and cultural celebration. Each dancer's regalia is unique, often incorporating symbols with deep personal meaning and including elements of sacred animals.
Ladies and gentlemen, already making the way into the dancing area, we make welcome to our mothers, our keepers, the ones that have given us life in this beautiful world. Make welcome Kamloops, have a round of applause! Ladies and gentlemen, make welcome to the young people of the Kamloops celebration. They're the most important ones as they carry on our beautiful way of celebration. Shake those feathers, dancers, shake those feathers. Dance your style, touch the Mother Earth. Help them out there, Kamloops! Round of applause, fancy feather dancers!
Traditional songs and drumming are also an essential part of any powwow.
The drum is the heartbeat of First Nations people, the heartbeat of the Mother Earth. And where sky meets prairie, at the northern extension of the Great Plains, is Saskatchewan's Grasslands National Park. It preserves one of the continent's largest remnants of mixed grass prairie. Here you can find species found nowhere else in Canada, like the black-tailed prairie dog. The numerous knolls of earth that characterize a prairie dog town aren't just leftovers from excavation. The mound is extremely important, and each one is kept in good repair by its owner. They serve not only as doorways, but as elevated lookout posts, and when necessary, flood control dikes to keep their burrows dry. When not doing chores, town members feed on the vegetation that grows nearby. They don't need to drink because they get all the water they require from the plants they eat. Prairie dogs are extremely social little critters. When greeting one another, they muzzle or kiss, communicating by smell and touch. Mule deer passing through town were cause for some vocalizing. These obviously weren't alarm calls. Prairie dogs wouldn't stand still if a predator like this badger was in the neighborhood. They mainly hunt at night, so it was exciting to spot this one out during the day. Unfortunately, they're one of the species negatively affected as prairie dog populations decline.
Burrowing owls are another. Abandoned prairie dog holes are ideal places for them to raise their young. Burrowing owls are active during the day, and on the prairie anything qualifies as an elevated perch from which to keep a watchful eye. But a pronghorn antelope is nothing to fear. The chicks are fed mainly on a diet of grasshoppers and mice, and when full grown, they'll only be about the size of a robin. They were once a common sight on the Canadian prairies. Today they're listed as an endangered species. At Saskatchewan's Burrowing Owl Interpretive Center, wild and hand-reared owls help increase awareness of this little bird's serious plight. The burrowing owl is facing extinction in Canada, primarily due to habitat destruction and insecticide use. Education, research, and recovery efforts are trying desperately to save these endearing creatures. At Grasslands National Park, their dwindling habitat is not only being preserved, but in some areas restored by reseeding former croplands back to prairie. The process is taking years. The difficulty is obtaining enough wild native prairie seeds. On existing prairie, the challenge is keeping non-native plants out. Under each cone, different treatments are being tested on one invasive species to try and find a way to stop it from taking over this diverse prairie.
The east block of Grasslands National Park centers on the Killdeer Badlands. This is one of the few places in North America to have a true prairie wilderness experience. At certain times of the year, your survival kit should definitely contain mosquito repellent.
Oh my gosh.
We had never seen them so bad. To escape the hordes, we chose the top of a barren clay hill to set up camp. Out of the grass, in the wind, and with a view that made us forget all but the prairie's peaceful quality. This landscape is truly a piece of Canada's Old West, so it seemed only fitting that we shouldn't leave without exploring it in the time-honored tradition, from the saddle. And even as tenderfoot horse riders, we decided it's one of the best ways to see the park. The grasslands have a subtle yet captivating beauty, and once it takes hold, it can inspire an enduring fierce love as sweeping as its vistas.
From here, we're Alberta bound, where we'll explore Canada's 3 most famous Rocky Mountain parks, visit Edmonton's Guinness Book of Records attraction, time travel to the golden age of dinosaurs, and experience the wild excitement of the Calgary Stampede. So let's get 'em up and move 'em out. Western Canada's great prairie farmlands plow right through the southern half of Alberta. But early settlers also found land here that was bad for farming. The Badlands. Instead, these canyons became the site of the world's largest dinosaur finds. The first fossils were discovered in 1884 along the banks of the Red Deer River. And today, Drumheller is dinosaur capital of the world. Here you can climb into the world's largest dinosaur and check out the view between its teeth. Better still, visit the Royal Tyrrell Museum of Paleontology and come face to face with the most extensive and spectacular display of dinosaur skeletons anywhere.
Long after the dinosaurs, the Badlands proved an ideal place for thieves to hide horses. Legend has it that horses would disappear into these canyons and later reappear carrying a different brand. Ranching began in Alberta in the 1870s when Canada was new, and it goes on much the same way today. Nowhere is the cowboy lifestyle more celebrated than in Calgary. For 10 days every summer, the sophisticated high-tech city remembers its roots. So welcome to the Wild West at the world-famous Calgary Stampede.
From the excitement of the stampede, we head west to the foothills for another kind of thrill that few get to experience. It all begins at dawn, testing the wind for speed and direction, wrestling with waves of billowing nylon. Yes, it's hot air ballooning from the inside out. Huge propane burners fill the balloon with hot air, bringing our whimsically named magic dragon to life, while others grow out of the hayfield like giant colorful mushrooms. One of the most important tasks is pulling the lead rope to keep the balloon straight, and only the most responsible get the job. We're almost ready to go. Then suddenly, it's up, up, and away in our beautiful balloon. One of the joys of ballooning is that everything happens in slow motion, according to the wind. Our pilot, Ralph Dawson's main control over the balloon is to add or release hot air. Conditions were the best they'd seen in years, and we went up to over 1,000 feet. Coming down was something else again. Could he really stop our fall in time? You may bounce or drag, but the padded wicker basket gives some protection. As I stood there watching, Magic Dragon looked nearly exhausted, its life's breath almost gone, at least until the next time. The foothills of the Rockies are also some of the best gliding country in Canada, and for Rick Matthews, it's a passion. He's hitting the skies in his high-performance single-seater. To film the experience, we mounted a camera on different parts of his aircraft. Notice the shadow of one on the end of the wing. Believe me, I'm not out there with it. Rick is not only the pilot, but using a remote switch, he's also the photographer. As the poem High Flight suggests, from here you can put out your hand and touch the face of God.
Just north of the border, east of the ocean, and closer to heaven, you'll find Waterton Lakes National Park. Owing to its unique geologic history, here the rolling prairies collide into some of the most ancient mountains in the Canadian Rockies. A spectacular glacier-carved valley cradles Waterton Lake itself, and amidst scenery reminiscent of the Alps, the Prince of Wales Hotel was designed to have the romance of a Swiss chalet. Since the hotel opened in 1927, the International has taken park visitors on tours down the lake and into the United States. Montana's Glacier National Park lies across the border, and in 1932, a Rotary Club initiative led to the joining of Waterton and Glacier as the world's first international peace park. On Cameron Lake, you can ply the waters to the border under your own paddle power, and even in the middle of summer, you'll be greeted by an impressive avalanche slope. Unlike the rest of the park, the snow here never completely disappears because at Cameron Lake, it's winter 8 months of the year. It's not that cold, just snowy. The area gets 15 to 20 feet of the white stuff a season, all because of its location on the Continental Divide. The mountains cause warm, moist air to rise and drop their load here. The park's unique weather patterns and unusual topography add up to a huge variety of plants. Despite Waterton's small size, over half of Alberta's wildflower species are found in the park, and many are rare in Canada. One of the most beautiful and unusual is the beargrass lily. They're only found around Waterton Lakes, and although you can see them here every summer, each plant only blooms once every 7 years. One of the park's most popular geological wonders is Red Rock Canyon. This beautiful water-carved gorge gets its rich color from iron deposits which literally rusted millions of years ago.
Waterton's outstanding natural features also provide habitat for an abundance of wildlife. The chance to see them living wild and free and going about their natural lives is one of the most exciting experiences the park offers. Today, however, with millions of people visiting the mountain parks every year, it has become imperative that we treat wild animals with the respect they deserve and need to survive. Sometimes wildlife appear tame, but if they're protecting young or feeling threatened for any reason, they can become aggressive. And if we intrude too much on their lives, we will extinguish the wild spirit we seek to know. An even greater threat to Waterton's wildlife is real estate development. Beginning right outside the park boundary, former ranch land is being carved up into building lots. While a single development may not have a significant impact, experience demonstrates that it rarely stops there. This kind of growth would seriously threaten many species whose survival depends on the open ranch land. Every fall, large herds of elk congregate on the prairie ranges in and around Waterton to spend the winter. In September, the bulls are busy advertising their prowess to attract females. Within each harem, there's usually a dominant female, but most of the interactions are among the males. When a young rival attempted to lure away a member of his harem, the patriarch sounded the challenge. The cows choose whichever male catches their fancy, and this one decided to stand by her stag. With the tension mounting, the bull gathered up his group and headed off to escape the competition. As we watched the size of his harem grow, we were impressed. That's one heck of a lot of bull out there. These elk are part of one huge population that live without boundaries or borders in both Waterton Lakes and Glacier. This spectacular international peace park continues to inspire each new generation with the ideal of living in peace, among people, between nations, and with all nature.
The Canadian Rockies are among the most spectacular mountains in the world, but this isn't exactly what lured the first tourists. Of all places, this is where it all began. In 1883, 3 prospectors ventured through that small hole into the unknown, and what they found soon led to the creation of Canada's National Park System. The discovery of the Cave-in Basin hot springs led the government to establish the country's first national park, predicting Banff would become a great watering place or health spa. Today, the historic bathing pavilion recalls the former splendor of the site. The Banff Springs Hotel, Canada's castle in the Rockies, accommodated the wealthy class of the Victorian era, and still few hotels can rival its majesty. From its earliest beginnings, Banff's town site was planned as a resort. Today, it's a tourist attraction in itself, combining alpine beauty with modern conveniences. And the Banff Upper Springs are still a hot attraction.
From here, you can hike to the summit of Sulphur Mountain or take the gondola and glide up effortlessly in 8 minutes. When it opened in 1959, this was Canada's first gondola, and today, completely refurbished, it remains the country's only bi-cable tramway. Upon arrival at the summit, you can enjoy the view from the visitor complex or make a bid for the peak. Leading to the best vantage points are promenade boardwalks that protect the fragile timberline environment. In the early 1900s, one man made over 1,000 ascents to record weather data at the pinnacle that now bears his name. Sanson's Peak overlooks the town of Banff and presents a grand panorama of the Bow Valley and beyond.
Cutting through the heart of the valley is the Trans-Canada Highway. Unfortunately, this busy thoroughfare hinders wildlife movements and results in the deaths of hundreds of large mammals each year. Along sections with the highest collision rate, fences and wildlife overpasses have been built to offer animals safe passage over the highway. This is one approach in the constant challenge to make roadways safer for motorists and wildlife. Travelers through the mountain parks will also see stands of burnt forest. In the 1920s, park valleys were mixed in open woodlands, but after decades of fire suppression, they became choked with conifers. Today, parks are reestablishing the natural role of fire and restoring biodiversity.
In Johnston Canyon, visitors experience the power of water as they trek along the exciting catwalks into the heart of the gorge. For those with a good eye, rock slides at the edge of the creek may conceal a perfectly camouflaged bundle of fur. Pikas are the smallest members of the rabbit family. Another rock pile resident, the golden-mantled ground squirrel, is often mistaken for a chipmunk. While most park visitors hope to see big animals, small creatures can be just as interesting. Water is soft and yielding, yet so powerful it moves mountains and carves canyons. Throughout time, we have been drawn in awe to its power and beauty.
John and I have seen many beautiful places, but we've yet to find one more beautiful than Moraine Lake. Nestled in the Valley of 10 Peaks, it's a realization of the perfection of nature, beyond the power of imagination to improve. Not far from Moraine Lake is another turquoise jewel of the Rockies. In 1884, it was named in honor of Queen Victoria's daughter and became the now famous Lake Louise. On summer afternoons, the sound of an alpine horn heralds a tribute to the role of Swiss mountain guides in park history. They were first employed at Lake Louise in 1899, and for 50 years they taught thousands of people how to climb the Rockies and helped make mountaineering popular in the Canadian West.
In winter, Lake Louise is cloaked in a different beauty, and some guests of its historic chateau come for the challenges this season presents. Trusting a horizontal expanse of ice seems downright tame compared to doing the same on a gigantic face of vertical ice. Banff's Weeping Wall is a playground for expert ice climbers. Using highly specialized equipment, they claw their way to the top of this frozen waterfall. In the 70s, this sport was in its infancy in Canada. Today, the tools are so efficient. One expert quipped, "Your grandmother could climb vertical ice on her first day out." Judging by the help I needed to get in position to film, I'd say it would have to be one wild and crazy granny. If experience or gear should fail, hazardous and expensive rescues are sometimes necessary. For most of us, the risk seems too great, but for some, the experience of such an exhilarating connection with the elements makes the danger worthwhile.
The majesty of the Rockies not only challenges our courage and stirs our soul, they're also the water towers of the continent. Just north of Banff, the Columbia Icefield in Jasper National Park is one of the largest accumulations of ice south of the Arctic Circle. This geographical wonder feeds 8 major glaciers, and the Athabasca is one of the most accessible in the world. Specially designed all-terrain snow coaches take visitors on a journey back to the Ice Age to discover the mysteries of glaciers. They arrive at the middle of the Athabasca and step onto ice that's 400 years old. And apparently one of the mysteries is that ice is cold. Meltwaters from the icefield flow into 3 major river systems that wend their way into 3 different oceans, quenching the thirst of millions on their way. Glaciers have flowed from the Columbia Icefield for the last 3 million years. However, it's now possible that within our grandchildren's lifetime, global warming could cause the Athabasca Glacier to melt away. Jasper and Banff are part of a World Heritage Site that's one of the largest protected areas on Earth. So big, so beautiful, so fragile.
From Jasper, Edmonton is a 3.5-hour drive. It's the capital of Alberta and Canada's northernmost major city. But its main claim to tourist fame is the West Edmonton Mall. Here, life is a carnival, and every day is Mardi Gras.
Not in the mood for a taste of New Orleans? How about a touch of European elegance on Europa Boulevard?
Boutique's not your bag? Then lace up your skates and take a spin on the NHL-size rink.
Want a little more G-force? This roller coaster is rated #1 in the world.
Looking for something less intense? Take a real submarine voyage on the world's largest indoor lake.
Or get wet and wild in the world's largest indoor wave pool. For even more fun, you can fly down literally miles of slides. It's the world's largest entertainment and shopping center. Why, anything's possible at the West Edmonton Mall.
Edmonton is Canada's gateway to the north, and our course is set for the land north of 60. In the Yukon, we'll fly over the Arctic Circle to Ivavik National Park for a safari Canadian style. But our first destination is the Nahanni, a spectacular heritage river in the southwest corner of the Northwest Territories. Taking a float plane is the most popular and practical way to get there. It's about an hour-and-a-half flight from the historic Hudson Bay post of Fort Simpson to this internationally recognized wild and scenic river.
Nahanni National Park embodies the northern Canadian wilderness at its most thrilling and magnificent. The heart of the park is the South Nahanni River, considered to be one of the premier canoeing destinations in the world. Experts come on personal journeys and novices on guided trips to experience the incredible beauty and power of the river. Paddlers enter the park near the Rabbit Kettle Tufa Mounds, a rare and unusual landform created by flowing hot springs that build up delicate terraces of mineral deposits. The Sluice Box Rapids are the turbulent prelude to the park's most dramatic display, Virginia Falls. It's Canada's highest and grandest waterfall, twice the height of Niagara Falls. Well, you can't go over it. You have to go around it. Virginia Falls is the only mandatory portage on the river, so all paddlers must pull out here before they run the next section. At an evening campfire program, a Dene interpreter relates stories describing the rich legacy of her people on this land, past and present. Dene means being of the river and of the land. For them, special features like the falls are sacred sites. Here, all can feel the presence of the Great Spirit.
Carrying canoes and anticipation, these adventure seekers are about to encounter what the Nahanni is famous for. Below the falls, the wildest stretch of the river begins. It demands respect and poses a challenge to even the most experienced paddlers. From here, the river is squeezed between steep canyon walls, resulting in large standing waves, none greater than Hell's Gate. For Canadian canoeing legend Bill Mason, it was the greatest canoe trip in the world. Through his films, books, and paintings, Bill touched millions with his love of canoeing and passion for the preservation of wilderness. Wildlife sightings generally occur along calmer stretches of the river. On hikes away from the river, herds of nimble Dall sheep can be spotted on the plateaus. A very eerie discovery of these creatures was made in one of the 120 caves high above the river in the canyon walls. Until recently, park visitors could explore the subterranean passages of Grotte Valerie and behold for themselves its dazzling gallery of hoarfrost crystals. But to protect its fragile beauty, the cave had to be closed. In its lowest chamber are the bones, skeletons of dull sheep more than 2,000 years old. Mysteriously, they ventured into the depths, only to become trapped in an icy tomb.
Visitors to Nahanni are overwhelmed by the sheer splendor of this land. A superb portion of the Mackenzie Mountains, so extraordinary it was the first natural region in any country to be designated a World Heritage Site. Spiring peaks, the greatest variety of landforms, Canada's deepest river canyons. But for all its grandeur, only a small part of the watershed is protected. Just outside its borders, industrial development threatens to destroy it. Parks Canada and Dene First Nations are trying to ensure that this irreplaceable marvel remains pure and wild.
We're heading even further north now, to the Yukon's Ivavik National Park. Canadian poet Robert Service captured our emotions about it best in his ballad The Spell of the Yukon. It's the strong life that never knows harness, the wilds where the caribou call, the freshness, the freedom, the farness. Oh God, how I'm stuck on it all. We're coming here to film a wildlife spectacle, the annual migration of the porcupine caribou herd. The hope is that our base camp will be right in their path. Seeing a few caribou was encouraging, but no one knows in advance what route the herd will take. Research indicated that this location was our best bet, so it's home for the next few weeks. A pair of long-tail Jaegers weren't interested in having neighbors, however. They engaged in diving diversion tactics until we moved an acceptable distance away from their simple nest with 2 well-camouflaged eggs. Suddenly, the wind shifted, and storm clouds started racing in from Alaska. We hunkered down for 3 days until a final squall dropped about 4 inches of heavy, wet snow.
This is summer in the Arctic, and while some animals and plants that live here may look delicate, they're well adapted to its harsh environment. The storm left the valley stunningly beautiful, especially when you consider it's about 2 o'clock in the morning, here in the land of the midnight sun. Time and sunlight are so precious in the far north. Most of the plants and animals have just a few short weeks of summer in which to complete their whole yearly cycle of growth. And it's this constant daylight that helps them to do that. Sunlight 24 hours a day. In late June, the tundra simply glows with life.
Out here, it's incredibly peaceful, but it's also grizzly bear country. And feelings of tranquility turn into anxiety real fast when you come face to face with a mother who would fiercely protect her young. Leaving her yearling cub behind, she started heading towards us. Unfortunately, we were downwind of her, so she couldn't get our scent. Not that that would necessarily stop her. You can't outrun a grizzly, so we stood tall, moved slowly, and hoped for the best. With her cub obviously undisturbed, she started circling to get above and downwind of us. Suddenly, at only 25 feet away, she caught our scent, which thankfully sent her heading for the hills to join up with her offspring. We were so thrilled to have survived, we wanted to share our excitement with just about anyone.
But Arctic ground squirrels don't want to hear about grizzly bears, their main predator, who dig 'em out and pop 'em down like peanuts. These small hibernators spend 3/4 of their lives in their burrows, while caribou are constantly on the move. The migration south had begun. The caribou had followed spring northward to their calving grounds in Alaska's Arctic National Wildlife Refuge and were now heading back to their wintering area. Within a few days, over 80,000 animals had spilled out onto the coastal plain, and this was only a part of the herd, like a scene out of Africa. Nowhere else in North America can you find such concentrations of large mammals as up here in the far north. But life isn't easy. Harassment by mosquitoes and parasitic flies greatly disrupts normal activity, and now is when they must eat enough to build up the fat reserves that will get them through the winter. Females must keep their calves nourished and strong as well as themselves. On the grueling trek, they're chased by predators like bears and wolves, face difficult terrain, and are challenged by many river crossings. Some years, as many as 40% of the calves die during migration.
The water is cold and swift, and many calves are swept away and drowned. Others tragically separated from their mothers, but most just keep on moving. At one particularly rough spot, a mother had entered the water and begun to cross, but her calf, still on shore, refused to follow. Just days old, perhaps it was too frightened or tired to follow. But mother's instincts were to keep up with the rest of the herd, and for hours I watched as she repeatedly started out to cross, then always returned to her calf. Finally, she swam all the way across and came ashore right in front of me. But you could tell her concern was for her calf. She would call to him in a plaintive, grunting sound, sort of a call, and he answered pitifully with a eh. Well, she didn't leave him, but returned to the other side once more. Before I knew it, they were joined by two other animals, and suddenly all had jumped in and were swimming for their lives. They've made it through the roughest part of the rapids, and it looks like they might make it. But then they got into real serious trouble. They've been washed past the landing site, caught behind this rock ridge. Mother is strong enough to pull herself free, but there's nothing she can do for her calf. I think I can. Yes, it's the little calf that could. The porcupine caribou herd have been making this same arduous 700-mile journey twice a year for thousands of years. Yet today they face new and even greater challenges. Global warming is already believed to be affecting the health of the herd, and their vital calving grounds on the only 5% of Alaska's Arctic coastal plain left undeveloped is being threatened for the sake of less than a 6-month supply of oil. The future is in our hands.
Due south of the Yukon is supernatural British Columbia. Here we'll discover the old world charm of Victoria, the world-class city of Vancouver, and the wildest coasts of the Queen Charlotte Islands. And it's all downhill from there. So strap on your skis, we're starting off on the slopes of Sun Peaks. Here it's all about edge, the greatest vertical in BC's interior, acres of dry powder, and long cruising runs. And when the snow melts, a whole new season of excitement takes off. But if you don't have the need for speed, you can pursue pastimes at a more leisurely pace in and around Sun Peaks Village. Exploring McGilvery Lake in a Voyager canoe is a peaceful paddle into the past.
But for those who want to go head-on with some bigger water, Sun Peaks has teamed up with Interior Whitewater Expeditions. This is Sabertooth Canyon on the Clearwater River. And you better hang on.
Hang on.
In case you're not wet enough, the adventure includes a trip under Mole Falls.
Sun Peaks is the home of Nancy Green, past Canadian Olympic ski champion and female athlete of the century. Guests can meet her at the lodge, on the slopes in winter, or the alpine meadows in summer.
Well, here we are on top of the world.
Wow.
Worth the hike.
Yes, it's so beautiful.
I feel like this is God's flower garden, and we're just so lucky to be here and to be able to live in this country. It's just great. There's so many different kinds of flowers, the blue lupins, paintbrush. The yellow ones are just starting to come now. There's every color and every shape and size. It's beautiful.
Ralph Waldo Emerson said the earth laughs and flowers, and a sight such as this can't help but make you smile. At this elevation, weather is very unpredictable, but it was still a surprise when it started to snow at the end of July. It was absolutely magical. Like nothing we'd ever seen. For us, this was the peak of our Sun Peaks adventure.
Wow, look at how big they are.
For any lover of wild things, one of the greatest sources of pleasure are stories like that of the triumphant trumpeter swan. By the early 1900s, this magnificent bird had been hunted to within a few wing beats of extinction. And Lonesome Lake, in a remote valley of Tweedsmuir Provincial Park, was considered one place where the swans were making a last stand. To help guarantee their survival here, wilderness homesteader Ralph Edwards and his daughter Trudy Turner fed the trumpeters every winter for over 50 years, and in so doing helped to save the species, proving the power of individuals to make a difference. Today, populations of the world's largest swan have recovered, and generations to come will have the opportunity to witness what Edwards described as a visitation of the angels.
By April, the swans start leaving Lonesome Lake to begin the cycle anew on their nesting grounds in Alaska. For the human species, an Alaskan cruise begins and ends in Vancouver. But it would be a pity if the vacation didn't include some time spent in this spectacular city, consistently ranked one of the top 10 best destinations in the world. The city's largest public market is a shopping mecca for locals and tourists. Right next door to the downtown core, and almost as big, is Stanley Park, Vancouver's first and one of North America's largest urban green spaces. "10 minutes away is one of BC's best outdoor attractions, the Capilano Suspension Bridge. It's definitely the longest and probably the most popular toll bridge ever suspended. It's a little scary, so you might want to take it slow, but it's a whole lot of fun. Heck, Marilyn Monroe did it, so did Katharine Hepburn, the Rolling Stones, and us too. Still, some aren't too sure, but I promise it will definitely be a high point of any trip to Vancouver. As a reward for that daring act of bravado, one of Vancouver's historic streets is a great place to do some window shopping.
In North America's third largest Chinatown, you can bargain for everything from silk robes to green tea. or retreat to the peace and tranquility of Dr. Sun Yat-sen's classical Chinese garden, the first of its kind ever to be built outside of China. Vancouver is a rich milieu of people and cultures from around the world. Its balmy climate and gorgeous setting where mountains meet the sea create a year-round paradise, hailed as one of the world's most beautiful and livable cities. Today, the Lions Gate Bridge connects North Vancouver to the downtown. In the early days, the commercial center of the city was Gastown, named for its talkative founder, Gassy Jack. Today, the Heritage District's steam clock echoes a reminder of the past.
From the beauty of this sophisticated city by the sea, it's an hour-and-a-half ferry ride to British Columbia's capital of Victoria on the southern tip of Vancouver Island. Blessed with the country's mildest climate, Western Canada's oldest British colony preserves a graceful way of life and the historic charm of its heritage. In an atmosphere such as this, the most fitting way to see the sights is aboard traditional transport. Amid Edwardian age elegance, buskers ply their talents for tourists at the inner harbor, one of the most romantic and enchanting scenes in Victoria. In this jewel of a city, loveliness reigns supreme. Victoria's most famous attraction is the world-renowned Butchart Gardens. Here, a former limestone quarry was transformed into a riot of lush living color. In their glory during the day, the gardens become magical at night, when the grounds dance with a different light and color.
A thriving First Nations culture and heritage shines bright on the Northwest Coast. Their powerful art and enthralling legends capture the imagination of the world. Perhaps nowhere is this more evident than on the Queen Charlotte Islands, the ancient homelands of the Haida people. At the southern tip of this rugged and remote archipelago is Guayhanas National Park. Here, the cycle of life encompasses land and sea. The riches of sea, earth, and sky supported a dynamic and complex Haida culture for more than 10,000 years. But by the 1880s, contact with European diseases had decimated the populations. At old village sites, carved poles memorialize the people and tell the stories of their lives. Today, new generations of Haida artists keep the history and traditions of their people alive and evolving. The Haida Nation works with Parks Canada to protect their inheritance at Guayhanas. The waters surrounding the park are some of the richest in the world and will soon be part of a national marine conservation area. This is a diver's paradise. Beautiful scarlet anemones and sea urchins decorate the shallows. But the highlight of the dive was coming across a lion's mane jellyfish. They can grow to be up to 8 feet wide with tentacles over 100 feet long. These may look delicate, but pack a painfully toxic sting that fortunately my wetsuit protected me against. Who would have thought that something so potentially dangerous could be so intrinsically beautiful?
The life of the ocean is intimately linked to the life of the land. Eagles rely on food gleaned from the seas and occasionally fight over it. As in the case of this sea lion carcass, you'd think there'd be enough for both of them. But that's not how nature works. Survival is the reward of the fittest. In Haida lore, eagles lead the sky creatures, and Guayhanas' bountiful seas support one of the largest populations of breeding bald eagles in western Canada. If the catch is small enough, the eagle may try to swallow it in flight, but the transfer from talon to beak can be tricky. And this is the one that got away.
While eagles are relatively easy to see in the park, getting a glimpse of the highly protected Peale's peregrine falcon is still a very rare and treasured sighting. There are so many unique animals and plants on these isolated islands, they're considered Canada's Galapagos. Yet only 15% of the Queen Charlotte's irreplaceable wilderness is protected in Guayhanas National Park. Its establishment in 1987 stopped clear-cut logging of the park's magnificent old-growth rainforest, thanks to the efforts of the Haida people and environmental groups. But the felling of ancient trees, some over 1,000 years old, continues unsustainably outside the park. What's being cut is the Earth's most endangered type of forest. What's being destroyed is Canada's natural and cultural heritage. Sheltered inlets and harbors dot the eastern side of the islands. The western shore faces the full force of the Pacific's wind and waves. At the southern tip of the park is Cape St. James and the roughest waters in the Queen Charlottes. Tide rips surging back and forth make for a wild ride, even on the calmest days. And this is Cape St. James on a calm day. Northern sea lions occupy many rocky islets around the Cape. They congregate here every summer. This is one of the West Coast's largest breeding rookeries. Guayhanas, meaning islands of wonder and beauty, truly live up to their ancient name.
From here, we pulled anchor and headed south to explore Clayoquot Sound on the west side of Vancouver Island. Like Guayhanas, its collection of moody isles are a kayaker's paradise. We set up camp on a secluded beach where our only neighbors were wild. The temperate rainforests of Clayoquot Sound are the largest tracts left on Vancouver Island, yet the fight to protect what little remains of this rich ecosystem is ongoing. In the ocean, kelp forests provide homes and nurseries for a huge variety of marine animals. The water here was a rich, cloudy shade of blue, the sign of spawning herring. As the males release their milt, it makes the water milky and fertilizes the eggs that the females are busy depositing on the kelp fronds by the thousands. Kelp is one of the longest and fastest growing aquatic plants in the world. The plan was to paddle out to a tiny distant island when a blanket of fog descended. Since there was nothing between us and Japan except a small pile of rocks, we wondered if we should turn back. But just as suddenly, a strong wind rose and cleared it off. Our goal was this rocky shoal, another favorite haul-out for northern sea lions.
These are the largest of all sea lions, so named because the male's large neck and shoulders are reminiscent of a lion's mane. This half-ton of territorial bull looked awkward on land, but nature's high divers were transformed into one of the most graceful creatures I've ever filmed. Once in their element, they performed a beautiful underwater ballet, and with gentle curiosity, they actually seemed to flirt with the camera. As if in imitation of the bubbles from my tank, the sea lions would blow their own bubbles. Unfortunately, like so many wild species, the northern sea lion is considered internationally endangered. Today, our planet faces many challenges, but nature inspires us with hope and leaves us with an overwhelming sense of thanksgiving for all of Earth's creatures. To paraphrase the late North American writer Merrill Dennison, one of the most important things about any country is the land. It's the land that makes the people, molds their character, and determines their well-being as individuals and as nations. Historically, Canadians epitomize these sentiments, and on this land have created a wonderful civilization. According to the UN, one of the best places in the world to live. Not only have we inherited some of the most spectacular scenery anywhere, we have the freedom to get out and enjoy it. And we can be grateful to those with the foresight to establish our national parks when the land still seemed boundless and wild. Western Canada, one of the most beautiful places on Earth. As you travel here, let it enter your heart so that you too will become an ambassador for all places, free and wild.